Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Friends in Recovery podcast. I'm your host, Jersey Ed, with my co-host, Tiffany P. No, that's not Tiffany P, guys. Who is that?
Hello. How are you?
Jeff Zazel.
I'm going through reassignment surgery. So
Thanks, Jeff.
I want to be known as Tiffany, and my pronouns are he, they.
And then we're going to get every hate mail now. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Please apologize to the audience. This, of course, this podcast is made possible by all donors like you guys. So thank you for all the donations. And Jeff is filling in today. Well, not filling in. It's his week this week to talk about step 7 in the clinical view of step 7. So real quick, to make a donation, I'd like to just let everybody know we are solely running on donations right now. So if you want to make a donation, please Venmo us at Friends in Recovery Enterprises and look under business, or you can send a check made out to F.I.R.E, F-I-R-E, P.O. Box 1551, Johns Island, South Carolina, 29457. Friends in Recovery is now part of the F.I.R.E network, just to let everybody know. And the F.I.R.E network, Jeff, you ask, what is it?
What is it, Ed?
It's a group of podcasters in recovery, and anybody who has anything to do with recovery that wants to get on to our F.I.R.E network, Friends in Recovery Enterprises, that we can share our experience, strength, and hopes with each other, share our shows with each other, share our audiences with each other. So that's the F.I.R.E network. If you want any information on the F.I.R.E network, please email me at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com, or you can email Carl, who's also helping us from SoberPod, at info@soberpod.com. We have a few new people signing up, and we're going to get it up and running very soon here, Jeff. So this week's show, again, is a clinical look at step 7, excuse me, with Jeff Zazel, that man right there who pretended to be Tiffany before. So stay tuned for some good recovery literature. Jeff will be using pieces. Peace is every step, make your bed, and the power of now. I will be referencing from the 12 and 12. Life Recovery Workbook, and of course, The Power of Now. You inspired me to grab that book and read through it, because I'm sure we can figure out a few things from it that pertain to step 7. Any sober shout outs, Jeff?
There is one, which is to Doug W. He has 13 months.
13 months. Doug W., congratulations. All right. And I like to do a sober shout out to Bambi, who's on here, Bambi D. She co-hosted last week as special fill-in co-host last week, and she just celebrated 6 months. Congratulations, Bambi! And she is just an avid friend and recovery listener. So, Bambi, congratulations! Quick meeting update.
Well done, Bambi.
Okay. Yeah, well done. Yes, absolutely. Quick meeting update. Don't forget to visit our AA meetings on Zoom. We do 2 meetings a day. You can find them at Friends in Recovery community.org or aa-intergroup.org, or on our social media, on our Facebook under Friends in Recovery Communities, Instagram. We're also on Telegram, TikTok, Snapchat, Friends in Recovery, and Friends in Recovery Communities. And here's the important part, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and give us a 5-star review. That's important, so this show can go out there. And also, if you want some information, please email me at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast. Also, if you're struggling, Jeff, you know what? I haven't done this in a while, and we're going to get an 800 number, but right now I'm going to give out my cell phone number because if anybody's struggling out there and you're listening to this show and you need some help, if you need to talk to somebody, if you need to get into treatment, if you need to find out AA meetings or what is an AA meeting, and we talk about that on the show, but I'm going to give my cell phone number out like we used to in the old days. Please reach out, whatever I can help you with. My cell phone number, and it'll be put up here. Carl put it up here in a minute. 215-694 1994. Please reach out at any time. And, if you need help with anything, we can help here because, that's important that, the Friends in Recovery, that's what we're here for. We're here to help get you to a higher plane, a higher level in life. So, and that is it as far as, question of the week, Jeff, here it is.
Question of the week.
Thank you, Carl.
Yes.
Question of the week. This is to get to know each other. And Jeff, I know you pretty well, but the fans don't know us, right? The fans don't know us. So, so the question of the week is, what's something that no one knows about you, Jeff? What is something that no one knows about you?
It is a really great question. So, as Mark Twain said, we are all like the moon. We all have a dark side that you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm not talking about any of my dark side experiences, but which we all have.
That's another show.
That's a totally different show.
Welcome to the dark side with Jeff Zazelle.
Yes, it's not unusual to be loved by anyone. So when I'm an identical twin, and I was in my 20s. My brother and I lived in New York City, and turns out that he had a girlfriend who was a model. And next thing I know, my brother and we became models in New York City because we were young men, long hair, fit, and for whatever reason, they wanted identical twins. So we were models in New York, Boston, and Copenhagen. So mostly print stuff, TV commercials. I was Mr. January in a Pizzarina.
Oh my God.
Pizzarina. Papagino's. No way. I was Mr. January with a couple.
for pizza. You were a pizza guy.
For pizza. And I remember we had a meet in Back Bay, and it was like we were celebrating the Super Bowl party, and that was like the storyline. And then so that was part one. In my later 20s, or mid to late 20s, I actually worked for the U.S. State Department as a U.S. State Department escort officer with African dignitaries. So I did that. It was like a consulting gig. And so sort of, an interesting thing. But, those are two things that usually people don't know about. Wow. And the charges of third-degree murder, which were dropped. Only kidding. They were not dropped. No, they never had.
Yes, he's just kidding, guy. So we're gonna get all kinds of hate mail. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
I'm like bringing it down to another level already.
Yeah, I know.
And Ed, what about you?
What about me, Jeff? Thanks for asking. What are some of my some things that people don't know about me?
And I know you very well.
You do know me very well. You may or may not know this about me, and it's something personal. I'm on here. I seem very confident. I talk. I run this show. I put it all together. I'm very well put together out there. I help a lot of people. I'll pick that phone up anytime. If you call that 215-694-1994, that's for you, Corey. He called that number years ago. I'll pick it up and tell you my experience, strength, and hopes. I'll help you get to wherever you need to get to. Right. But here's the pretty shitty part of like the inner thoughts of myself. And this is nothing outer. This is more inner. I don't feel like I fit in, and I have imposter syndrome. That's what goes on in my head. Right. I mean, you would never know that by me coming on here and talking and putting stuff together, and, but I'm like, oh, well, when's this all going to go down? When's it all going to, stop happening? Do you really know about the steps? Do you really know about recovery? Shit, I'm fucking 28 years sober, right? I do know about recovery, but it's that imposter syndrome. And I hate it because I live with it, not on a daily basis, but I live with it a lot. And I could have thought of something, I wear pink underwear. I don't know. I could have thought something like that, but I wanted to be real. I wanted to understand, not you guys just listen out there, that one person, it's not just you struggling with something like that. You know what I mean? We all struggle with it. So don't, just kind of push over that hump. And that's the reason why I wanted to bring this one up to today.
Yeah.
So
That's really a great one, because the stuff I talked about was just sort of me personally, but what you talked about is the universal. Like lots of people feel that, and like you're right, Ed. You present as a remarkably confident person. You are competent, and you present as confident, but sometimes that's on a continuum. Confidence goes from, oh, today I'm feeling good about myself. Today, the next day, perhaps not so good.
Yeah.
And we all have that, but it's good that you can share that, because one of the great things about the Friends in Recovery podcast is that we talk about our own experiences, but this is, several goals we have here. One is to educate people. The other is to just share feelings and to also let people know that they're not alone. So when you say something like that in a position of leadership, it really helps everyone.
Yeah.
I actually thought you were going to say all your tattoos were fake. They were just,
I put them on every morning.
You like apply some makeup. Hold your right hand up.
This one, my left, the right to your left,
the other right. The New York Yankees. All right, there we go.
Exactly.
They're looking pretty good.
Yeah. Bambi says, Ed, I feel the same way. I'm afraid it will come crashing down someday. Yeah, I get that, man. But then I remember I have this program for life, and that's true. And that's where this program comes in. That's where step 7, this is step 7. This is my character defect, Jeff. Yep. This is where I have to ask God to remove my shortcomings and my character defects. I want to make one thing clear as we start talking about step 7, Jeff. And I don't know if you even know this, but you can kind of comment on it. Yes. You can commentary on it. Yes, you can comment on it. Whatever fuck I'm talking about. So Tiffany mentioned it last week on the show. We were up in Minnesota at a treatment center where the person who runs this treatment center has had a lot of personal information and belongings of Bill W. and the beginning of AA that was donated to him. It was so cool. I'll put some of the pictures up on of me and Tiff on Facebook. We had a picture of, we held the original writings of, I think it was step 1 or whatever, hit in Bill's handwriting. It was so cool. There was so much there. So that was really cool. But
that's amazing.
The guy who we were with told the story that, in step 6, I believe, hold on, I can't remember. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of characters. That's step 6. Step 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So I was always baffled up until that day that Tiffany and I were at that treatment center. And it's called The Retreat. They're in Wayzata, Minnesota. I want to give them a great shout out. And John, who's the executive director there, he gave us the privilege to see all this stuff. But he said, when Bill wrote 6 and 7, character defects and shortcomings are the same words, but when he was in school, he was always taught not to repeat it because it doesn't sound like you're smart enough. So that's the only difference, is just the writing. So step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of characters versus humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Same thing. It's character defects or shortcomings.
That's a very good point, Ed.
I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're fine.
All right, good. I'm just trying to turn up the microphone because I couldn't hear myself. So
no, you haven't missed a beat, Ed. You're good.
Anyway, so humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Humbly being him, God of our understanding, and our shortcomings. What's your take on that, Jeff? What's your kind of view on that when somebody comes in? I have a character defect. Do people even know what character? I didn't know what a character defect or a shortcoming was. I had no idea.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. Most people don't even understand, the whole concept of a character defect. Mm-hmm. But if you say to them, what are the things about you don't like? That they understand. So when we look at the steps, and, as this week, we're doing step 7, it's actually about humility.
Yeah.
We know that it requires humility. The bit of irony requires humility to actually look at yourself and say you're imperfect.
Yeah.
But it's what a sense of liberation. I actually think when I look at the steps, I think that step 5 is actually the hardest one. But step 5 is acknowledging those character deficits, defects to someone else and God or a higher power. But the ability to, I could talk to the mirror. So we've talked about, I think you and I, David Goggins, Navy SEAL, who wrote a fantastic book we talked about on the show, Can't Hurt Me.
Yep.
And, he says, be accountable to yourself. Have a accountability mirror. Put little yellow stickums on your mirror and tell yourself what you are not doing. Don't sugarcoat it like you are lazy. Get out of bed. Go to the gym. Go to school. Stop that unhealthy behavior. Get off your behind. That's but telling someone else those things is really hard. That's what step 5 is. So we build upon step 5 and 6 and 7. And I really think that it requires some insight and understanding, like you are not alone. The reason AA works, I think the number one reason it works, I mean, there's multiple variables, but I think the number one factor is that we realize we are not alone. We're in this together. So when we talked about what is it that people may not know about us, and you talked about, hey, sometimes I feel like I have the imposter syndrome. And by the way, Ed, me too. I feel like that many, many times. But I also know that it's a normal feeling and to plow through it. So then there's the heart and the head. My head tells me that, no, you are competent and you have skills and you know what you're doing. My heart, my insecurities, my emotions, my feelings say, oh, you don't know what you can do, what you're doing, you're going to blow it. But it is interesting how the ability to sort of like look at your own self requires tremendous courage. So there are people who refuse to stop drinking. Why? Because if they stop drinking, they have to come to terms with what is it that got them there, and
character defects. Yeah. Because I never had a fucking character defect when I was drinking. I'll be honest with you, Jeff.
Oh, you outstanding, right?
I was perfect, right? I was perfect but that was in my head. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. These feelings I have today, my sponsor always says, Eddie, the one good thing about recovery is you get your feelings back. And John L is on here now, and he loves this saying. One good thing is that about recovery, you get your feelings back, and the bad thing about recovery is you get your feelings back.
Yeah, well said.
Like it is well said. It's well put. My sponsor always tells me that, but I never had anxiety. I never had these feelings. I never kind of thought this way when I was all fucked up all the time. Right. But I also didn't have a great life either. My life was not, was not a good life either. I was just a drunk existing in a world,
And when you felt that way, that you don't have a great life, did you ever think to yourself that you could have a great life, that it could get better?
No, absolutely not. Just because of where I was at, and I guess everybody's, that's a good question, Jeff, because everybody definitely has a different, I guess, look at that. But at the time when I stopped drinking, when I went to recovery, I went to treatment, I was like, I'm never going to amount to anything. That was my whole life. I had a good job. I had this, I had that. It was an okay job, but when you're in it at the time and you're drinking and all that. I had 4 kids. I'm never going to be able to buy a house. I'm never going to be able to buy this. I'm not going to move out of my mom's house. I was living in my mom's house. No, I had no clue that I was in, I live in South Carolina now. I even know my name's Jersey Ed. I live in South Carolina now. So,
and you're not even eating grits, and you have a beautiful house on St. John Island. I mean, like, you live on an island, Ed.
I know. I do live in an island, right? That's crazy. So, but it's these shortcomings, it's these character defects. And that's why it says humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings, right? Now, let me ask you this, Jeff. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Now, when you get somebody in treatment and sitting in front of you, first of all, how do you deal with a higher power or God in therapy? Number one, and how do you tell somebody they have a fucking a character defect or a shortcoming? Right? Yeah. I mean, I would walk. I'd be like, "Fuck you! I'm out the door, brother. I don't believe in God because he wouldn't have me here." And second of all, I'm not fucked up. You're fucked up, right? Yeah. I mean, come on,
exactly. So it is interesting. So the quick answer is I handle it carefully. Because one of the things we know is that, successful therapy is really about the person feeling connected to the therapist, the quote client / patient. We know that successful outcome of outpatient therapy or inpatient, that the identified patient or the client likes the people they're dealing with, and they feel connected, particularly in like, weekly, psychotherapy in a therapist's office. If they don't like the person, they're not going to open up. They're not going to trust you. They're not going to share things. And, like you have courage because you have a person who actually is able to talk about this stuff because, like you did before, that's beneficial. So one of the things I try to impart with the folks who are sitting in my office is like, I'm not here to judge them. I'm here to help them. And the thing I always remember is just meet people where they're at. So when we think about the term, and people have heard about this, particularly as it relates to addiction and alcoholism, is motivational counseling. It's not my agenda. It's the patient's agenda. We work together to create forward movement. So I could say, here's what I want you to do. I want you to stop drinking. I want you to eat better. I want you to go to the gym, save money, be nice to people, open up doors for old ladies. I could come up with a long list of very thoughtful, reasonable, appropriate things, but that's my list.
Yeah.
They may not be there. So when someone is coming in and they're hurting and ready, the last thing I want to do is throw things on them to make them feel worse about themselves. So what we talk about is like, let's look at yourself and what are the behaviors that are helping you and what are the behaviors that cause you to feel bad about yourself? And then identify, like, by the way, people who have addictive disorders generally are depressed and have anxiety. 70 to 80% of them, which is why they use substances because they self-medicate. They're feeling bad about themselves because it's a behavior. So one of the things, so there's a bit of irony because in recovery in 12 steps, we talk about letting go, like that you don't have control over this. So I always remind them, there are many things you don't have control, but there are some things you do have control. So you can choose to show up at a meeting. You have control over that. The thoughts and feelings and the urges and the desires to use, you don't have control over. Now, as you work through your recovery, you learn strategies to help you maintain some onus of control over what you can do. So you call your sponsor, you call Ed Chanchio, maybe you walk your dog, you go to the gym, you do certain things.
Take a run, whatever.
Take a run. And that clears your head, and there's a whole series of things that occur. But, I'm no better than the person sitting in front of me. And I never want them to feel like just because I have advanced degrees and I'm sitting in this office, I can learn so much from them. Everyone can teach us something. And therefore, it's a partnership. They come in and I usually tell people, welcome, nice to meet you. I just want to let you know it's confidential and I'm working for you. My job is to help you. I am working for you. So if there's something we need to cover, you tell me. If you're not sure, we can talk about it. I'll come up with what I think is appropriate. You could choose to, go along with that. So the bit of irony, because today we're talking about seventh step, which is all about humility. I approach it with tremendous respect and humility because I want that person to get well. And I feel it's an honor for me to be welcomed in that person's life. And I take it very seriously. And I want them to feel okay about the experience. Now, there are times they walk out of the door and they feel okay about the experience, but they walk out feeling sad. Why? Because they're talking about how their father maybe took their life, or how they're not happy with what their behavior is, or they done certain acted out with certain character deficits, affairs and cheating and stealing and lying and all those really bad things.
That's stuff they have to really dig into to get over and move on through. We can't, I love how you say that because we can't change the past. We only can make it a better future. We don't have to be that person anymore. Stealing, lying, whatever we were doing back then. We don't have to do that now and
for the rest of their life.
For the rest of their lives. I want to.
Go, please. No, you go.
Humbly asked him to remove. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Him being God. All right, Jeff. What is it? Because a couple of steps, we step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, to another human being. Step 1, we admitted. Step 2, ask God to remove. Step 2, whatever. A lot of God stuff in these steps. What is it? And I know what it is for me, but why, from a clinical or a therapeutical step, a spiritual being, a God, a higher power, whatever. Why is it so important that we have to get on our knees or whatever it is to ask God to remove our shortcomings, or ask God, tell God about our character defects? Why is that so important that we have this image? And I believe in my God, and it's in my head, like, does this God get this? Does this God understand this? I'm assuming he does, right? I'm assuming he does. That's my belief, and whatever your belief, whatever's everybody else's belief is. But what is it? There has to be something from a clinical or from a therapeutical standpoint that this is very important to have a higher power, to get these things out to that higher power. And what is that? I mean, is that something that you're not supposed to tell anybody because you're in a therapy world? But
it's like a secret handshake.
Yeah,
we'll keep this between us. But
does that make sense? Did it
does make sense. Question? So there are some people who are agnostic, and they don't believe in God, and that's fine, because I'm not here to judge anyone, and I accept people for wherever they come from.
Yeah.
And there are people who will often say, gee, I don't like AA because it feels like a religious thing. There's too much God. So I said, listen. So one of the things I often say is that, first of all, I think it's important to realize whether it's God or something greater than us. We have to look at a sense of spirituality. Our lives are finite. And if we think about physics, and this is sometimes how I talk about it, explain it to some people, we are here. We're just a bunch of atoms and molecules circling. And when I die, there will be other molecules, and they'll still be there. It'll just be a different type of energy. So my cell phone, this microphone, these eyeglasses, they comprise themselves of atoms and molecules, and they're in different format. So everything is made of something. And there's energy in all this stuff, because when you look at atoms, they're moving. They're not, even though we think, oh, it's just a piece of plastic glasses. They're comprised of this sort of these molecules. There's energy everywhere, and that so there's like this esoteric sort of view, like, we're not that powerful, and the ability to realize that there are things greater than us. That, to me, that's God. That it's not a guy with a white beard, in the heavens. There's a sense of spirituality, and there's an element of liberation when people are able to say, like, there's something greater than us. So I just say, well, just look at the sunset, look at nature, a river going, look at the majestic canyons, Grand Canyons, the Pacific Ocean, the sequoias. There's amazing things that really talk about the power of the universe. And you look at the stars at night and the moon. I'm like, maybe that's not God, but it's something.
Yeah.
And I say, so we need to also realize that, life is finite, and that, whatever gets you through the night helps. So and I also think, like, what's the expression? No atheists in foxholes, and I also think there is power of prayer, So actually the research tells us, if I pray for myself, I actually will do better. If I pray for you, not as well. So people sometimes do pray. And, we talk about humility, putting your knees down on the ground to pray. That's a very humbling experience. Now, certain people don't do it. There's certain religions that don't put their knees down, but they pray in other ways. And they, so it's a bit of a rub for some people, but I think it's I believe in God, whatever that means. It may change, but, I believe in spirituality. I believe there are greater powers. I believe in the goodness of the human beings and mankind. I also believe that there's evil and bad things out in the world. Of course. Just read the news. Yeah. So, but I usually tell people, allow the energy to come into you if you can. And it's not, we're not speaking the gospel. It's not a religious interaction, but it's more about education. Like, if you realize that there's something more powerful, it sort of takes the heat off of you. But, when we think about recovery, it's really about taking ownership of the things you can control. So I like what you had said earlier, like, focus on the day. So I often talk about stoicism, and one of the Stoics say, yesterday's dead, tomorrow does not exist. It's really about this very moment. It's about being in the present. So let's make this moment count. And a lot of times I'll point that out. I said, right now, you and I are sharing this moment. You and I are sharing this virtually. I say it to people sitting in my office, and it's really about, trying to grow as a person.
Mhm.
That's why I like the 12 steps, because it gives a bit of a roadmap. Are they perfect? I don't think anything's really perfect, but I think they really work. I think they're remarkably helpful. So I often say, look at AA about the same way you go to a restaurant. You open up the menu, or look at 12 steps. You open up the menu.
Yeah.
I like this. Oh, I'm not wild about, raw oysters.
Yeah.
I love chicken parm.
Mhm.
Oh, I love step 7. I'm not wild about this step. All right, well, do the best you can with it, because whatever you're doing is still better than what you were doing before.
Exactly. You may not. Yeah, I see what you're saying. The steps. I always hear people, step 5 is so hard. I'll be honest with you. Step 1 was the hardest to me.
Yeah,
right? Step 1 was
Isn't
the
that true?
hardest.
I would say step 1 is the hardest, and the first day of everything is the hardest, and showing up is the hardest. So
exactly.
So you and I've talked about this. 80% of life is showing up. Show up at the meeting, whatever happens. And once, when I remember going to graduate school, and I was anxious, am I smart enough? Am I capable enough? But I do know myself, and I said, I may not be smart enough, I may not be capable enough, but I know I'm not going to quit. I may get thrown out, I may wash up, I may flunk out, but I will never quit.
No.
So, and then I realized I'm just as smart as everyone else.
Yeah.
And, but sometimes I think it's good to think those feelings, even though you would think it's great to have confidence. Mm-hmm. The ability to question whether you are so capable and actually have maybe a little insecurity is really a gift. Why?
Yeah.
It's humility. That's what we're talking about. I am better than anyone else.
That's right.
When we think about step 7, it's humility, using a spiritual approach and using a certain level of thoughtfulness and commitment, and being honest and courageous and humble. Mm-hmm. So those who are humble develop great friendships. Why?
Absolutely.
Because they treat other people with respect. So do you ever meet someone and they're so arrogant? Mm-hmm. That's the opposite of humility.
Oh yeah.
And do we like those people? Usually not.
No.
And I don't like to be that person.
Yeah. No.
And
you were exactly what you're talking about. I just had a session with my therapist yesterday, and he said something down to earth that was humbling, that humbled himself, that kind of made him kind of, because when we sit and this is a perfect example, and you clinician, me, just start
a knowledgeable person of the 12 steps.
Yes, exactly. So, I always look at you of a higher plane, and you have a lot of education. I always see that, but we're the same. We're the same. And we share the same interests. We share, we want to help people. You just happen to have a degree and a license and all that stuff. And you're very good at it. You're very good at it. And so is my therapist. And he said something to me that put him on the same plane as me. Hey, he really does. He's just like me. He puts one leg at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
He shaves his face just like me.
Right.
He's not perfect like me.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing because, you sit there and you talk to a therapist and you're like, okay, well, explain step 7 to me, Jeff. What is it? How do I get it? Yeah. Well, you may or may not understand it fully, or maybe you might not be able to get it across to this person fully, because there's a lot in step 7. It's one sentence, but humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Humbly, first of all, not everybody's humble, like you said. Right. Asking people's fucking hard to ask, right? People are afraid to ask. Him being God, right? Who, right. A lot of people don't believe in God, right? And don't remove anything. I like my life the way it is.
Right.
I like my life the way it is. Don't fuck with my life. Change, remove, change. Our shortcomings, right? Every one of these words in this step can be really tough if you think about it, if you break it down, true. Right? And, good.
Well, I was going to say, I like what you're saying, because we all have shortcomings. So some days my shortcomings are not so high. I'm managing it better.
Yeah.
Other days they're elevated. So I always think I've said this expression before, recovery is like painting a bridge. You start on one side, you do the best you can to get to the other side. Guess what? When you get to the other side, you start all over again.
Back the shit up and get baback over to the other side.
We are all a work in progress.
Yeah.
Some days I'm great at the gym. Other days for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't know why I can't do it. So, you and I are both marathon runners, and we've run together and we've had some great runs. Mm-hmm. And so I remember training for the Boston Marathon, and you train all year, and that is just that one day.
Yeah.
that you're going to run.
Yeah.
None of us have a crystal ball. We
Yeah.
don't know how the race is going to be. Things happen.
Yeah.
However, what do we know? We know that, it's the rule of the 6 P's. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. If
I like that.
Yeah, the rule of the 6 P's. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. If I put the energy in, the time in, nutrition, if I do what I listen to my coach, I, deal with my injuries appropriately and so on, I, in theory, should have a better outcome. But you never know. So the time I ran the Boston Marathon the fastest was the time I expect to do really poorly. I was undertrained. I had been injured. The time I trained the best just didn't happen that day.
Well, let's even take it with the bombing of the marathon, right?
Right.
Did you never expected that? And
Exactly.
I remember you calling me saying something happened up there, and I was watching it on TV because I was calling to find out what was going on. And you're like, something happened up there. They stopped you at mile 20 or something. Didn't you get that stopped at mile 20?
So that year, that was 2013. I was injured that year, but my son Austin, who turned 18, was running, and
that's right.
I met him at Heartbreak Hill. So
that's right. And you ran with him.
I ran in with him. From mile 20, and we were running in. We actually get separated at a certain spot, and one of our friends, our mutual friends, Brian Fleming, who was a Boston cop who ran the peer support unit, who's retired, he was doing a detail by Boston College. I said hello to him. I ran by him. So Austin took off. I said, Austin, I will find you at the end. I never caught him at the end. So I'm at right before you turn on Hereford Street, left on Boylston Street. I'm less than 700 yards from the finish line. The bomb goes off. I can't find my son. My son is out there somewhere. And I don't hear the explosion, but I can smell the smoke. I can smell the chemicals in the air. I can see the smoke, and the cops are saying to me, sir, you can't go. I think, what's going on? A bomb went off. And then I get a phone call. I call my wife, and she says, yeah, it's really bad. Where's Austin? I said, I don't know. He's in front of me. So what do I think? I think that something really bad happened to him, because she said there's a lot of people who are terribly hurt. There's body parts everywhere, and people are dead. And, so it's one of those moments in life that you never really know how you're going to deal with it until you're confronted it. And I'm about to lose it. And then I say to myself, so we talk about, do you believe in God? You know what I said to myself? God would not do this to me. He would not take my son. And then I said, and if for some reason he did, I would deal with it then. So I was able to stay in my lane. But amazingly, you just don't know what's going to happen.
No.
Tomorrow is the crystal ball. We can good guesstimates. We can have good ideas,
of course,
but things are always subject to change. So, so that's when we think about about recovery. We're powerless. We're powerless over so many things. I do the best training ever. I had a running coach. I went to bed early. I was logging 50, 70 miles a week. I had the best gear. I ran a terrible race. The next year,
that happens.
Injured, no coach. I couldn't afford him. And I said, forget it. I ran a great race. That's how life is, isn't it?
You don't know. Yeah, you don't know. I want to shift gears here real quick, Jeff, because I have a couple questions before we close. Describe the difference between humiliation and humility. What's the difference?
That's great. So humiliation is when you put someone else down. You're humiliating someone. You're pulling rank on them and you're insulting them. Humility is when you're saying, I'm no better than anyone else. So I often talk about Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, used to say, when they had grand parades in the center of Rome, he would hire a peasant to walk behind him, to tap him on the shoulder every 500 yards, so that he would remind himself, I am no better than that peasant. I may be ruler of the Roman Empire, which is vast, the most powerful man on the planet, but I'm just a man. I'm no better than that peasant walking in bare feet with me.
That's right.
So that's humility. And humility is a beautiful thing. Why is it? You allow yourself to open up. So I try to be, humble, because I feel like, first of all, I'm no better than anyone else. Do I like myself? I do like myself. But that doesn't mean I'm better than someone else. And I want everyone to like themselves. And when I like myself and I'm humble, it's so much easier for me to tolerate other people because I let it go. I actually have empathy, not anger. Someone's flipping out and screaming. I feel bad for that person.
Yes.
I am not offended by that person.
Well, also when you're humble, there's less stress in your life.
Yes.
When you're humble, there's less conflict in your life.
Right.
There's less, I always call it my dick's bigger than your dick, contest. And you don't have to play that every day.
That's right.
I don't have to play that anymore.
It's so true. It's such a beautiful point that you made, Ed, because if you're humble, you are the richest man in the world.
Yeah.
So you know what happens when people think their sense of themselves is elevated by having fancy things, expensive cars, etc. Completely meaningless. So if you rely upon who are the happiest people, the happiest people are those who are content with what they have. I mean, that is a freaking gift. I mean, so I try to have 3 sons. I try to remind them, it's not about possessions. It's about being happy with what you have.
My therapist always says, you don't want to be the richest man in the graveyard at a young age.
That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. And, think about rich people we know who are totally miserable and unfortunately suicided. They killed themselves.
Yeah.
Robin Williams. Yeah. Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain. I really liked all these people, and I looked up to them, respected them, and then I realized they were flawed and imperfect, like the rest of us, to the point they had so much pain they took their lives. So, and they were rich. So, is being rich making you happy? No. And what's interesting? When studies are done of the Fortune 50 richest people in the world, if you had $10 billion, you would think you would be very happy and you would be, enjoying life. The guy who's number 20 on the Forbes list is pissed off. Why? Because he wants to be number 10. He wants to be, he's disappointed that he came in, at 20th of the richest people. Think about, we were just talking about, marathons, Boston Marathon. Everyone who finishes is a winner. You come in 30,000. You feel just as good as the guy who came in 10th. Yeah. Why? Because you challenge yourself. You did it.
Exactly.
So it's not
even if you don't finish, Jeff, even if you get hurt, you have to, in your case, 700 yards away, that was an unfortunate thing, but it's all about the training. Like you said, it's a year's worth of training for one day. Right. Yeah. And that's what humility is.
3 to 4 hours,
for 1 day. 3 to 4 hours. Yeah. And that's what the training with humility is. Like when you practice that all day long, it's going to come in somewhere, right? Yeah, it's going to come in somewhere. It's going to come in handy with the guy. And it might be this big, the guy cutting you off instead of fucking giving him the finger, flipping him off. Yeah. You say, oh, well, maybe he was in a rush day. Maybe his daughter was sick. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe diarrhea.
Right. Or maybe his son got hurt in the Boston Marathon bombing and he's trying to get to the hospital to say goodbye to him before he dies.
Exactly.
Cut people a break. Jordan Offshore, the great Irish English playwright, once said, the only time my education was interrupted was when I was in school. That's humility. So I take the approach, I'm educated. It doesn't mean I'm smart, and I can learn. I believe I am smart, but that's not the point. Having the degree means nothing. I think you can learn things from everyone. So the guy my mechanic who dropped out of school in 8th grade, I respect that guy because I can learn from him. And I think he teaches me a lot. I ask him questions. We can all learn from everybody, even the quote bum on the street.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I learned from I always say this and I say it in the meetings all the time. And if Bambi's still on here, she loves this saying, but, I always say, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I better get out, or I better think of my motives and figure out why I think I'm the smartest person in the room. Right.
Right. Exactly. So I would, one of the things I love is when I learn something every day. I learn a new word. I learn a new fact. Like my whole mission on a daily basis, I want to learn something. So, and I think that's why this podcast is great, because I always learn things from you, Ed. And
likewise.
Yeah, thank you. So, and I often talk about as human beings, we want to be the best person we can be. There was a great quote from Emerson, which I'm going to read because it's appropriate to step 7 about humility. Emerson said, "In my walks, every man I meet is my superior in some ways. And in that, I learned from him." So if we think about everyone as your superior, you will always learn something from that person. That will always be helpful.
Yeah,
So
that's pretty powerful.
yeah.
That's pure humbling yourself.
That is pure humility. Yeah.
Yeah, pure humility. If you
And
can
think about
learn from everybody, you know.
and I was gonna say, think about the relationships you can develop with
Mhm,
people because you can learn from them.
mhm.
Like,
Oh yeah.
you're a famous professor and you become friends with the guy who parks your car. And, but that professor is humble. And then all of a sudden you speak to this person and you discover they were born in some, island off the coast of Africa where he's
Mhm,
doing research on, organic materials. And that's how things evolve. We have these
mhm.
simple conversations. I use this expression all the time these days, Ed, by the way, I wanted to mention. I didn't come this far to just come this far.
Do you really use that?
I used it yesterday. Yeah.
I love that. I love that saying. That it's such a great saying. It's we're gonna wind down here in a minute, but because we have to have a couple other things that we have to do, but these expressions, all this information, humbling and asking God to remove our shortcomings. I just want to let everybody know, we spoke about this last week. Being humble, we don't have to get that perfect. We're sometimes when somebody does cut us off, we're going to give them the finger. We're going to yell and scream at them. It's just that we're human beings. It's funny that in humble and human, it's almost the same beginning of each word, right?
It's true.
And also not humility, in what you call it, being humiliated also.
Yeah,
so
right,
we
exactly.
can go either way.
It could go either way.
Human, humble, or humiliation, right? I mean, we're all human beings in all that. If that makes sense.
That's a great point. I just want to throw one last point in, which is that, and that's an excellent comment, Ed. When we're humble, what do? We do things for others. We hold the door. We visit our grandfather. We don't steal. We try to be honest. We help others. We shovel the car out, for our neighbor who can't move and, they're disabled. Or
I won't do that anymore down here, Jeff.
You won't, right? You just have to deal with hurricanes. You have to provide electricity for your neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
But when we do those things, people are grateful to us. But know what happens for us? We feel so good about ourselves. So all the research about, we'll call it humility, being kind to others, allows us to feel better about ourselves. So there was a famous study done where people were holding doors for others and they were interviewing the person who walked through the door. They said, how did you feel that person did open the door? Oh, they felt really good. They felt better. So we have these brain chemicals, neurological reactions. When people are kind to us, the person who's receiving the kind gesture has an increase in dopamine and serotonin in their head because they're feeling good. But here's the gift. The person who's doing the kind gesture, who's showing humility, who's showing kindness, what happens to them? Same exact thing. They have an increase in dopamine and serotonin. So what's the saying? It's if they receive, being altruistic, becomes a wonderful thing. So like people say, oh, you're a thoughtful person. You work as a clinician. You help others. I said, I am thoughtful. I said, I get way more than I give. I get I'm so grateful for this opportunity to help others and make a difference in their lives. It makes my life so much more meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah.
I have tremendous gratitude about that.
Yeah. It's funny that you say, because I always, when I'm feeling down or upset or whatever, I will force myself to say hello. I give everybody a peace sign, and usually by the fifth person that I'm giving the peace sign or saying hello to, I'm back on track.
Yeah.
Right? I'm back on track.
Social interactions. That's why AA works. The number one reason AA is great.
Yep.
We're together. You with other people. It's so powerful.
Yeah. And it works. And it could be a person in a store. It could be somebody walking down the block. It could be, a guy at the Home Depot, whatever it is, and I don't have to know these people. And it takes me 2 seconds, not even 2 seconds. Hey, how's it going? And that's it.
Yeah.
And then you do it 5 times. You feel, I'm telling you, after the 5th time, you feel good. Try it. I dare everybody out there to say hello to 5 different people when you're feeling like shit. If you're pissed off, if you had an argument with your wife or your husband or a spouse or whatever, when you leave, don't fucking be pissed off at the world. Go say hello to 5 people. Humble yourself and say hello to 5 people, and then email us back and let us know what that outcome was, or give us a call, 215-694-1994, and let me know personally if it worked or not. Because if it didn't work, we'll give you your money back. You didn't pay for anything, so we can't give you your money back. So, but seriously, and there's a couple other things that I do too. You have to get out of self. That's what humbling is.
Yeah.
Because once you get out of self and you start helping others, that's when the healing begins. The healing begins helping, shoveling that woman or that man that may not be able to do it, the snow out, like you said. But you know what? When I walk past it and when I do that or see something that I've done, or knowing that woman can get to her car if there was an emergency, or just to go get a bottle of milk or some bread, up in the Northeast, when it snows, everybody goes to the store and buys bread and milk for some reason. Exactly. I don't know why, but you cannot find bread or milk when it starts snowing, right?
By the way, everyone has enough food to survive like 30 days probably. And, why even bother?
I know. But when you see that and that person's getting out, it makes me feel good again and again and again, right? Mm-hmm. So here's my dare. Here's my challenge for everybody out there today. When you're upset, when you're in an argument, when you're not feeling good, when you're feeling blue, when you're feeling depressed, especially depressed, get out there, take a walk. And when you see 5 people, say hello to them and see what happens. Seriously. And
that's a beautiful thing. That's a great experiment.
Jeff, well, this has been a good podcast, Jeff. Thank you so much. Tiff had an emergency. She lost her dog, so she's running around her neighborhood in Minnesota right now, looking for the dog. So I'll get an update as soon as we get off here.
Thank God it's not winter. Sometimes you gotta, No, it's just you gotta be grateful for little things at times.
Exactly. And do you know what her dog's name is?
I have no idea.
Carl as in
oh my God.
I know. I'm like, you named it after Carl, didn't you? Because she recently this guy. She's like, no, I like the name Carl. I'm like, bullshit. It's because Carl, it's Sober Pod. So I want to give Carl a shout out. Carl, thank you. If you guys if you aren't doing anything and you are happy, listen, you be happy when you go listen to Sober Pod, because Carl will piss you off listening to him, right? No, I'm just kidding. Just go listen to them. Listen to Sober Pod. And also Joe's on here. Joe from Dayton Recovery 101. He's on here. Go listen to his show too. Please, make sure that, you tell them that we sent you. Real quick, Corey says, no jokes about milk and bread in Massachusetts. So, but anyways, Jeff, thank you so much for the insights on everything. I know this does take a little bit of your Saturday morning. We appreciate it. Even though this comes out on a Tuesday, we record it on a Saturday. We really appreciate this. And you know what? I hear very good feedback about your show in particular. Everybody loves the clinical look at each step, because I'll close with this. You do your thing, but don't forget, Jeff, we as AAers, as people in recovery, we look at it only from an AA standpoint of view. That other side is a mystery to us. Like the clinical piece is a mystery to us. Like, we don't understand that. So when you come on here, you give us insight about all this, right? You give us, kind of the knowledge. And I think what this does also, it opens up for people to get therapy, because they're saying, that guy Jeff is just like that. Well, not just like Ed. You have hair. I don't. I don't. But he's just like Ed. Yeah. But he's makes sense with the clinical piece. But they're kind of hand in hand here.
Yeah. And we all have our own perspective. We all have our own reference point, because we all different people. We all have, not everyone is identical. Mm-hmm. In fact, no one is identical. So we work together, and it's always great to be on the show, and we're a team, and we just our agenda is to be of help to others.
Absolutely, that is it. We want to be help to others. So again, if you need to reach out to us, please 215-694-1994. If you're struggling, if you have a question, if you have a loved one that might need help, if you came across this podcast just by circumstance, please reach out to us. And stay sober, everybody.
Good job.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.